What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. I have Kaylee Chatfield Allred with us. She is the co-team lead of the Columbus agents at Fathom Realty. Kaylee, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to jump on here to talk about your real estate journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And I know we were kind of chatting a little bit beforehand and, kind of have a connection of how we know each other a little bit, but we've never interacted before. And I always love these podcasts because I get to know you a little bit more and your journey to this business. And that's what this podcast is about. It's all about just showing, other agents out there, people that are getting into this business that, we all come from different career paths. We all come from different walks of life and we all do real estate differently. And I do not like when I think new agents feel like they have to get put into this box.
Yeah.
You have to focus on this in order to find success. And, those of us that are in the business and successful in the business, we all do it our own way. Right.
Absolutely.
So Kaylee, we always start from the beginning, growing up, what was life like for you?
So I'm the oldest of five. We grew up on the north end of Columbus in like the Sharon Woods area. And between myself and my youngest sister, who there's only 7 years between us. So 5 kids in 7 years. It was very loud in my house. It was pretty crazy. My mom was stay at home until my youngest sister got into kindergarten, and then she started working in Columbus Public Schools, where she was for, 20 years. And she recently transitioned over to Nationwide Children's. But so it was just, we were always into stuff and sports all year round. There's 4 girls and 1 boy. I'm the oldest. My brother is right after me. Then we have twin sisters who are a few years after me. And then my youngest sister is 7 years younger than me. So, it was just always controlled chaos, I guess. I graduated from DeSales. So we went through Columbus Public K through 8. And then my brother and I, because we were so close to DeSales, we had some friends that were going there. And the school that we were slated to go to just was not exactly where we wanted to be, especially with regards to sports. So we did the summer work program, waxing floors and stuff at DeSales so we could go to the private school for high school. So that's where my brother and I went. And then my younger sisters all went to Westerville Central, but because my parents had moved. So yeah, growing up was just a lot of riding bikes all around our neighborhood. It just felt like a very different time, right? I feel like anybody growing up in the 90s, it's just very different than it is now, where we just kind of ran amok in our neighborhood and just kind of had free reign. And now it's very different.
Right. What sports did you play?
I swam. Well, I had a very lackluster and very short-lived career in basketball when I stopped growing at 5'6" and was not very good. And then when I got to high school, it was, do I continue to try to spit this square peg through the round hole of my not so great basketball? So I focused on swimming because I've been swimming competitively since I was 5. So I swam competitively at DeSales. And then when I graduated, it was kind of one of those things do I still try to swim after that or not? But there were a lot of other things going on. So right when I graduated, I ended up joining the Air Force. And the reason why I joined was kind of hilarious, but I come from a big military family, but none of that ever really spoke to me. I honestly thought that everyone was a little weird for, being all gung-ho and whatnot, but I found out I didn't get the full ride I really thought I needed. Well, I needed it to get to go to OSU. And the day I found out I didn't get the scholarship that I needed, they were having the ASVAB, which is the entrance exam for the military, at my high school library. So I asked my first period teacher if I could go take this test. And I scored a perfect on it. So all these like recruiters were beating down my door. I didn't tell my parents I took the test. And I delayed it. It's called a DEP program, a delayed entry program, because I was only 17. So I was depped in with the Navy, and they let it slip, I don't know, 2 or 3 months before I graduated, that I would have to chop off all of my hair at boot camp. So I was like, yeah, it's not going to work for me. And my recruiter was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I literally went right next door to the Air Force recruiter.
Oh my gosh.
And was like, so what can you do for me? And
like, I gotta keep the hair. So what,
yeah, I don't want to chop my hair off, but like, I want school paid for.
Yeah.
Can you get that for me? So that's what I ended up doing. I joined the Air National Guard. So I was out at Rickenbacker, the air refueling wing here in central-ish Ohio. It's down in Obetz.
Yeah.
But so when I graduated to sales, I went to boot camp instead of going to college that first year. So I went down to San Antonio and then went to tech school, and then I came back probably, what was it, like 6 months after I left and everything, after graduation. So I started Ohio State late, and with the Guard, it's like the one weekend every month, but 2 weeks a year type deal. But this was in 2005. So things were still very hot and heavy in the Middle East. And my first deployment was less than a year after I graduated high school. So I was in Kyrgyzstan, and then came back, went back to school, started playing rugby at Ohio State. So then I kept deploying, like every 18 months I would deploy. And I finally was able to graduate in 2000, what was it, 10? So 9, 10, sorry. And if you take all my deployments out of it, I would have graduated just shy of 4 years. So I was still on track. Like, I was taking full course loads as soon as I would come back from deployment. I was going to school full time. I was working full time. I was bartending and serving. I worked in a gym for a while as well. And then I would be at the base whenever I was home. So I'm used to this like constant, just, have a lot going on all at once. And when I graduated, I majored in international business and world economics, minored in Spanish, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. It was just like, now what?
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you, because you kind of just made the decision to go take that test, in high school on a whim.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because I went to, I graduated high school in 2007. So I was at Ohio State in 2007. And, I don't know if this was how it was for you or not, but for me and my family, it was more of like implied, I guess, to go to college or go to the military, or, there really wasn't like the just go join the workforce, right? Like right out of high school. But you saw that the military was a potential route to go in order to cover college.
Correct. Because my whole goal was to go to, I was a 4.0 student. Like, I was a huge nerd in college, nerd and jock. Like, I worked out all the time, was an athlete, and I had a 4.235 GPA. Like, I didn't get a B until I went to Ohio State. And it was one of those things where it's like, I wanted to go to college. That was always kind of implied for me, but like, neither of my parents graduated college. it just wasn't that they
Right.
worked, and they worked really hard. We were, solid middle class, but there was always money struggles growing up, always. And, I was terrified of going into debt. And I was like, I know I want to go to college, but I know I don't have $30,000 to pay for this, and I don't want to take out loans. So how can I make this work? And the guard was just like, as long as you do X, Y, and Z, jump through these hoops, blah, 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 we'll pay. And I was like, all right, bet. So when I came home and told my parents that I was going to join the military, my mom was like, okay, all right, let's do this. Let's explore this. But I mean, I had already talked to the recruiters. Like, I did it all by myself without telling
Right.
them, and then kind of dropped the bomb. And my dad was a little apprehensive, but my mom like grew up in a military family, so it was a bit more normal for her. But man, that night before I went to boot camp, I was like, maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But it's wild because like that one rash decision has literally shaped the rest of my entire life.
It's
So
interesting because there probably are a lot of those, and the reason why I love starting from the beginning is because there's usually something that happens as I've interviewed agents, on this platform. There's usually something that happens either early on in their career or life, right,
yeah,
that has had a big impact on their real estate career, or something along the way, either in college or their previous career, that there's that defining moment,
yeah,
right? For me, it was failing calculus and at Ohio State, which caused me to switch my major, which then caused me to realize that my major wasn't really worth anything. So then
yeah,
I got into real estate, you know?
right. Well, at least you decided that, like, found that out early. Cause I mean, I have a really pretty degree that I feel like I need to like frame in gold or something. Like, hey, I have this degree and I also have like back problems now from my time in the military, but like, here's this piece
Yeah.
of paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's why, I mean, definitely it's one of those things that like that one rash decision that stubborn 17-year-old kid made has shaped my entire life. I wouldn't be married to who I'm married to. I wouldn't have my children. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
it's just nothing would have happened the way it did.
Right.
Because when I got back in 2010, or when I graduated in 2010, rather, sorry, I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of my best friends and mentors, she is like a big sister to me. Was out at my base. She worked with me out at the base, and she's still there. But she had taken a contracting job in Afghanistan, and she was working with a civilian contractor. And I was very aware of like what the contracting business entailed, because as a military member, whenever I was deployed on all of my deployments, I worked alongside these contractors, and I'm like, you're doing the same job, making way more money than me. So how can I do this? So, because I didn't mind deploying, like if for me, it was like I was single, I didn't have children, I
Right.
didn't have, I had my dogs that my mom would watch, and I would literally just move my entire life into a storage unit every 18 months. And I was okay with that. Like I got to travel a lot. I got to see a lot of really crazy stuff. I got to experience a lot of really like traumatic things, but also
Right.
some cool stuff. Like I just have a lot of life experience now that I would never have had otherwise. So when Jesse reached out to me and was like, "Hey, congratulations on graduating. What are you up to?" And I'm like, "Man, bartending." Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. And she was like, "Do you want to come to Kandahar?" And I was like, I mean, that's never really been on my bucket list of places to go, but what's the job? So she's kind of spelled it out. I'd be working with linguists and being a retention manager. And, I went into it like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So I got hired on by this contracting company. They shipped me off to Kandahar. stayed there for 13 months working in the birthplace of the Taliban. Like, I don't know if you're super familiar with the geography of Afghanistan, but Kandahar
No.
is in the south. It is very hot. It is very dusty. At the time, this was 2010, 2011. So like it was very violent.
Right.
And that's where I stayed. I was working with a company that had the major linguistic contract over there. So my whole job was to travel around to all the bases and essentially convince these people who were either local Afghans or American citizens who were Afghan or they were naturalized or had green cards.
Right.
They would come back and work in their home country as translators for NATO forces. So they're not military, they're civilians who are going out on foot patrols, and like, it was intense. So that's what I did for 13 months and came back. That's actually where I met my husband. So we met in Afghanistan. We met in Kandahar, which is always a funny story because everyone's like, "Oh, where'd you meet your spouse?" And everyone's like, "Tinder." Like, we went to high school together, a bar. And I'm like, "Yeah, we met in Kandahar." People are like, "What?" So yeah, we met in Kandahar at the CrossFit gym there. And then came back and worked stateside with that company for a little bit. And that's where I met Kreider. That's where I met Jeff Kreider, who is now my partner in real estate. And he is also kind of a jack of many trades. He was working IT and security stuff there, like cybersecurity stuff. And I was in HR, and we just, kind of crossed paths, and he's good friends with my friend Jesse, who also worked with this company who was in the military with me. So it's like very small degrees of separation. The company lost contracts and my job got eliminated. So I tried a different corporate America job, and man, it was like soul sucking. I'm like, this is not anything that I want to be doing. It had nothing to do with my degree. It had nothing to do with my like life experience. I was like miserable. I was like a house that was put in like a dark closet. It was terrible. And I'm like, yo, I can't do this anymore. And Michael, my boyfriend at the time, was in Texas because he was in kind of a nasty custody situation with our oldest, who was from his first marriage. So he was in Texas, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna move to Austin. So, when I had come back from Afghanistan in 2011 and bought my first house in German Village, which was like, it was a big goal of mine, like, buy a house before I turned 25. So I did, like, month before my 25th birthday. And, so I bought the house, and I was there, and I was renovating this like 106-year-old house by myself and just figuring out as I went with my dogs. And that's where I kind of just fell in love with like old homes and old things, and just like reimagining spaces and things that have a story. But then when I lost my position and went to work for this other corporate company, I was just miserable. And I'm like, I need a change. Michael and I were doing long distance thing. So I was like, I'll rent this house out. And this was, 2011, 2012. So things were very different in the real estate world then. So I rented it out and moved to Texas, and we were there for about 5 years, and opened a gym and ran a business down there, all while I was like bartending and working at this farm to table restaurant as well, and coaching classes. And I was having it was a lot of hard work, especially because we were business owners and owning a brick and mortar, but it wasn't corporate. And it wasn't the corporate grind that just felt like my soul was getting sucked dry. And we had our daughter, who's now 5, in 2017. and there was a lot going on in the area where our business was, where our gym was. Remember a couple years ago in the short north when a bunch of businesses had to close because of all the construction, like they literally got choked out. And that's what happened to our gym. Like you couldn't even get to our facility. Like you would have
because
to
of the growth.
it was one of those things where it was like, what do we do?
Right.
And at that point, full circle moment, I reached out to Kreider and was like, hey, I need you to sell my house for me. I'm in Texas and the house is in German Village. And so we did that. I was able to sell it for almost double of what I bought it for. And it was painful because I love that house. And like still to this day, like if that house ever goes on the market, I'm gonna buy it back because I love it so much. But so I sold it for double what I bought it for. And that facilitated us to be able to like sell off the gym. And then we made the decision as a family, what made most sense is for us to move here. Like my husband's from California. We didn't have family in Texas, but we had full custody of our oldest. And then we had this new baby who was, you know, it was like running a business and a newborn. We had 2 newborns and our oldest has special needs. So there's like 3 newborns that we're caring for. And it was just something had to give. So like I said, I'm the oldest of 5. I have a big family base here, and the cost of living in California is astronomical. So the choice was made that my son and warm weather loving husband, who was still like my boyfriend at the time that we would move here. And when we just made the decision to sell off the gym, this was probably, I don't know, 3 months after I sold the house. I reached back out to Kreider and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe getting my license. Like, what do you think? And he just started laughing and he was like, if I had $1 for every time someone told me that they wanted to get licensed, I would be a millionaire. But you would be really good at this.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're kind of like, you're doing what I want to be doing. Like, cause he has his hands in a lot of different things. He was doing flips and he was doing some renovations. He has some rental properties, buying and selling and etc. So he's a super like genuine, authentic human being. I love him to death. I love his family to death. He and his wife and me think very, very similarly. And he and my husband are very like similar as far as how they're wired. So we always joke that like, this is why it works so well. But, so I started taking my classes online before we even made the move. And I was taking classes and packing boxes and getting ready to make the drive from Austin back to Columbus with 2 kids, all of our worldly possessions, my 2 German shepherds. Like we looked like the Griswolds. Like it was intense. And then got back here and we rented a house in Uptown Westerville for a bit because you know, Michael's not from here and I'm super familiar with all of Central Ohio anyway, but I knew we had to get into, you know, a select few school districts because there was some stuff going on with Ella, our oldest, that as far as her learning goes. And it was like, okay, well, we need to get into a district where she can get services. So we rented there while I continued to like take my classes and whatnot. And finally finished in November. So we got back here. We moved here in August. I took the test in November, passed. And then just started shadowing Jeff on every single thing that he did, like all of his transactions and whatnot. For the first 6 months, I literally was just like his shadow. I went on showings. I went on, you know, closings. I went to new listing appointments and buyer appointments and buyer classes and took a lot of CEs and just tried to soak up as much as I could. And that's what I did for 6 months. And, you know, in real estate, if you're not closing deals, you're not making money.
What was it specifically? Was it just that you saw Jeff's lifestyle?
It wasn't
and
even
what the
that. It
business
was,
was
I think,
bringing
a
it,
big
or
turning point for real estate with me was when I bought my house in German Village. I'm like, I
yeah,
love, like, this is so cool. And like
yeah,
the appreciation of like just fun spaces and figuring out how to make it prettier. And then when seeing what Jeff was doing, but also like our gym space in Texas was also this like dilapidated building that we drove by, and I'm like, that's it. And Michael's like, that's what? Like, that building is condemned. And I'm like, it's going to be so great. And it was beautiful until the construction around us like choked us out. But I fell in love with like the idea of spaces in general and how
yeah,
you can really make them tell a story, and you can make it your own and, help other people do that. And I just, by nature, I'm a connector. I call myself a terrible salesman because I'm not trying to ever sell anybody something, but
right,
it's more just like, what do you need? Let me help you find that. And that's what I'm super passionate about. I like connecting people to, other people that they might need. And my clients
yeah,
always joke because they're just like, Kaylee's got a guy for that. And I'm like, I do. I 1,000% have a guy for that. Like, if you consult Google before me, I'm gonna be offended. Like,
yeah.
come to me if you need something. Um,
You
so
know,
yeah, I think
it's
that it was
in,
a combination of a lot of things, of knowing that I didn't want to have to go back to corporate America. I didn't want to have a job or a career where my kids were in daycare for like every day, Monday through Friday, and I got to
yeah,
see them an hour before bedtime and then wash, rinse, and repeat. Like, that just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I knew that I didn't want to be in the service industry as far as like bartending and serving and waiting tables forever. Like, I loved that because of the flexibility it offered me.
right,
But at the same time, it was just, I didn't want to be doing that for the rest of my life.
right,
So when we moved back, it was like, okay, this is really a time where we can really figure out something that might work for us. This is a new start, like we had just closed the gym. And I, with the gym, it was like my husband's baby. And, I came to him and I was like, we took a gamble on this for you. And I'm wondering if maybe we can take this gamble for me. And he's
mm,
like, hell yeah, like, let's do it. So, I mean, we moved back. He started working because he does general contracting too. So,
okay,
he started working along with a couple local contractors in like the Westville and Lewis Center area for a bit. So that was bringing in money while I,
yeah,
was soaking up all that I could.
yeah, yeah,
And 6 months after I got licensed, I got my first like deals, and I made a goal for myself. I was like, okay, 6 months. So I got licensed right around Thanksgiving. So come June, I was just like, okay, for the latter half of this year, 2019, I want to close 6 deals, one a month. I think I can do that. And I
yeah,
closed 10. And I was like, all right, sweet. Like, let's go. And it never felt forced as far as like paying for advertising and like
yeah,
creating different Instagram handles or Facebook pages where it's just my real estate. It was like, the reason why I really loved what Jeff was doing was because it was, real estate is a part of his life. And
right,
like, I think that people resonate and want to work with other people that they resonate with, that like, it's not just this billboard on the side of the road. It's a person who has kids, who has a whole history. And
right,
I joke that I've worn like so many hats in this life. Like, I'm a veteran, I'm a mom, I'm a step up to the parent. Like, we have a special needs child. I come from a big family. I was an athlete for a long time. So it's like all of these life experiences help you work with people who are making some of the biggest purchases of their life. And I feel like
yeah,
I joke with Kreider because I'm like, I don't get, he just laughs. He's like, you don't get ruffled. And I'm like, I don't see, no one's going to die. Like I've had
Right,
jobs
right.
where people could die. So it's like,
Yeah.
is anyone going to die here? No. Okay. Everyone needs to take a breath.
Well,
We have here are some problems, but let's get to the finish line and we can do this together. So
yeah. And I think too, like, yeah, technically, the state calls us salespeople, right? Real estate salespeople. But the one thing about real estate is we're not selling anything, right? We're advising, we're guiding. The house will sell itself, whether it's on the buy side or the listing side. So, I think sometimes real estate as real estate agents, we get that rap of, oh, they're just another salesperson, right? They
yeah.
just want the commission, and it's like if you position yourself with that advisor mindset, I could care less about the house. The house will take care of itself, right?
Yeah.
Like my job's to make you understand how to get from A to Z and what's the best way to do it based off of your goals,
Mm-hmm.
of either buying a house or selling a house.
Exactly.
Um,
No, I have a super similar philosophy. I mean, that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, listen, I meet you where you're at.
yeah,
So, however fast or slow you want to take this, I'm game. My whole goal is to make sure that you feel empowered with this process, that you don't feel like so overwhelmed and shut down or stressed out that it's just like this was the worst experience ever. There's always going to be hiccups, but my goal is to make sure that this is as streamlined as possible for you,
yeah.
for me, for us. And like, I am the facilitator here. I am the fixer. I am smoothing things out and making sure that it's palatable. So,
For real estate, um, supporters, doubters. I mean, obviously, you opened up a gym before, right? So you kind of have that taste of being the business owner.
yeah.
Um, but a lot of times people are coming from careers or industries where their pay is pretty structured, right? It's every 2 weeks, or it's once a month, or it's salary, or whatever. Did you have? And I know you said take the risk on you, right? For you coming back and getting your license, but supporters, doubters, people questioning, like, hey, do you really want to dive into real estate? Coming back to an old city but a new city, right? In that
Right.
sense.
Right.
Can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, my number one supporter has always been Michael. He's like, babe, you're great at this. Like you're a natural at this. It doesn't feel you enjoy, like I enjoy what I do. I
Yeah,
never wake up like dreading anything. I enjoy connecting people with with what they want and like helping them get to that end goal. And so he has always just been a huge cheerleader and just force in my corner, and also taking a brunt of like looking after our kids and making sure that I can go and do what I need to do
yeah,
while, we're also in the midst of a massive renovation and whatnot. So him definitely, Kreider has always been just in my corner 1,000%. He's a great leader. He leads by example. And I've been around a lot of terrible leadership in my life, especially with
yeah,
like military and corporate and, contracting, et cetera. And good leaders are something that's hard to teach. Leadership is one of those things that you either have it or you don't. And you can learn to be a better leader, but I think that being a leader in general is just an innate quality. You either have it or you
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
And he has it. And I would follow him anywhere. I'm buying what he's selling. And that's what, he looks out for me and I look out for him. And it was just him and I for quite a while. And then once we've been bringing on other agents underneath us, we're just really cognizant of the culture that we're creating, where it's not like a cutthroat competitive. It's more just like, if we all work together, we all eat better, right? Like,
yeah,
we can all kind
yeah.
of pull each other up. So
There,
he had a lot
yeah,
of success by himself, but now he's really just sharing that wealth with us as far as like his knowledge, and I'm a quick
yeah.
study. So
I,
that's been like my biggest supporters. But I mean, the doubters, especially people that don't understand entrepreneurial like mindsets, you know, and that don't quite understand like the risk versus reward, and the risk
Yeah.
is a little too scary for them to make that jump. I mean, even within my own family, it's like,
Yeah.
especially those when we first moved back and we're trying to figure out, you know, working with Children's Hospital to get diagnoses for our oldest. And, you know, we're in a new city for our family unit. We have a 1-year-old, and, you know, my husband's getting himself situated in a new space, and
Right.
be working really hard but not be making any money. And it's like, you know, is it worth it? Maybe you should just go get a part-time job, or maybe you should just go do this. And, you know, those doubts start to creep into your head too, where it's like, shit, maybe I should.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you because, you know, you mentioned you shadowed for 6 months,
Mhm,
right? Like you were wherever Jeff was at, that's where you were at,
mhm.
right? And I feel that our industry, I probably shouldn't make large assumptions, but I'm
Right.
going to because
In our
I've been
experience.
I've been in here for 12 years and I've
Yeah.
seen plenty of agents come and go, and
Yep.
I feel that ego sometimes gets in the way of them doing the tedious work, the
Uh-huh.
work that has no reward. Because I was the same way. I had a mentor. You know,
Yeah.
Ryan was your Jeff, right?
Mhm.
And I tell people that join our team, the agents that have the fastest success, the most success, they're in the office, they're volunteering for showings, they're volunteering to do the final walkthrough, they're volunteering to drop the signs and lock boxes. You know, what specifically though did you know that you had to shadow for 6 months? Like, or did Jeff just say, "Hey, come and shadow me for 6 months"? Like most agents think like they skip that part, and I think
Yeah, and
skipping
I
that
think
part is the part that really slows them down and causes more of the failure than the success.
well, it's like you got to build a foundation before you put up walls, right? If you don't have
Yeah,
footers, your walls are going to fall down. So, you know, making sure that I had a solid foundation in understanding things, and making sure, like, I have a solid construction background. I know enough to be dangerous as far as like walking through spaces. And, you know, like I said, my husband does contracting work. My brother, and he did foundation repair for a while. My brother-in-law owns a waterproofing and exterior drainage company. Like, you know, I'm super familiar with the ins and outs. It's not just like, oh, look at this paint color. It's, hey, this is structural. This is not structural. I know this is ugly, but like, let's reimagine this. I mean,
yeah,
that's never been an issue for me. But knowing like the paperwork ins and outs, because, you know, like when you get your license, it's like, hey, congratulations. And there's no like,
yeah,
this is how to take a transaction from start to finish. You need
yeah,
someone to teach you that. So, I mean, I volunteered. I told Jeff, I was like, I want to learn as much as I can. Like, send me to showings. I will take them through showings. And he had confidence in me because he knows that I'm not just some like dope who doesn't know anything about construction.
right.
And like, he has an electrical background. He does a bunch of flips and everything. And so we think very similarly, and especially like walking through spaces like, hey, yeah, there's a crack in the basement wall, but we can fix this. It's not, we don't need
Yeah,
to, this is not a $30,000 like big box, like waterproof basement. Uh,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, I'm not going to throw out business names, but we all know who we're talking about. You know, get a few steel beams down here and we'll be good to go. But you know, walking through and being able to be factual and give solid sound advice without fear mongering or without like the fluff. Um, so I just volunteered. I was like, listen, like, I want to learn. You are where I want to be. So
yeah,
I never want to be the big fish in a small pond. I want there to always be bigger fish in front of me, because otherwise there's nothing for me to chase. And I just, that's how I learn best. I learn by watching and I learn by doing. And I knew that I wasn't going to learn by doing on my own.
yeah,
So, and I also didn't want to be that agent that, is on the other side of the table, that you're like, man, they are green. Like, they don't know what they're doing. I wanted to go into it with some confidence, and I knew that I
Yeah.
would only get that confidence by doing it. So I told Jeff, I'm like, I want to learn. Like, I want to do these showings for you. Let me write the contracts. Let me do it so I can figure it out. And I asked him like a bazillion questions, and he never once made me feel any type of way for asking questions. He encouraged it. And then I got my first, actually one of my sisters was my first deal. And working with family is good and also not so great sometimes,
It's
but
hard. It's hard.
it's hard because there's that professional line that's hard to
Yeah.
enforce. And even later afterwards, she was just like, you were so right. Like, I was so stressed out about like, $1,000, and I was freaking out. And you just kept saying like, big picture, let's keep our mind on the big picture here. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a mirror, like something that was written out like, oh, it has to be 6 months. That's just how it shook
Right.
out. And
Right.
I got my first deal 5.5, 6 months after I started, and I did it. And I asked Jeff a bunch of questions throughout that whole transaction to make sure I was doing things the right way. And then I just made little goals for myself. I want to close at least one a month for the rest of this year. And I beat that. For the next year, I wanted to double it, and I tripled it. So I've been able to keep building, and it's all just felt very organic and not super, nothing's been forced, and nothing feels, it all feels very genuine and very authentic. And I don't feel like I have to pretend to be somebody that I'm not.
Yeah.
And just
I was
like,
gonna ask you, did you do it just straight through SOI or?
yeah, I mean, it's just been either referrals or word of
Yeah.
mouth, or Jeff and I would work a deal together. And then he's like, you take this one, and I follow up with them. And
Yeah.
it's just been very not forced. And I'm a huge proponent of, if it's meant to be, it'll be. And I mean, I tell my clients that, I'm like, if it's your house, it's your house. It's gonna be your
Right.
house. Like, and it all comes together. It always does. And I
Yeah.
feel that's this kind of the same way with this whole career path, because now I can't imagine doing anything else. I'm starting to branch off with some other things, but like, this is helping people buy and sell is something I'm really passionate about. Like, I love it. And now I'm trying to branch off into, other avenues where I had my first, one of our clients, one of our seller clients is an investor, and he buys and renovates and flips and everything. And I did all of the design work for him,
Oh,
as far
wow.
as like finishes and picking out like, what it's going to take to really make this be a standout space.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my first deal, doing both, like being the co-listing agent with Jeff, but also doing the design work and helping it get to this, that finished product that he was really wanting. So I really enjoy the design aspect. I really enjoy the renovation aspect. We bought our house in the middle of the pandemic. So it's on 8 acres in Delaware, and we have completely gutted this house and are, while we're living in it, which is ridiculous, like 0 out of 10 recommend. But, we're creating this space as we go. And, my husband is amazing. He's an amazing carpenter, and he's an amazing, he can see a space
Yeah.
I can see the space finished. Like, I walk into a really ugly house and I'm like, okay, it's hideous, but can you see this? And people are looking at me like I have like something crawling out of my ears. They're like, how do you see this? And I'm like, how do you not? Like, it's ugly now, but like, let's look at what it can be. And my
Yeah.
husband knows me well enough that he just follows behind me like, this is so much work. He's like, I see it, but this is going to be a big project. And It is, but I love
It's
it.
always one of those things, like, it can be done, it's just whether or not what's the cost and time, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, Kaylee, I wanna be respectful of your time, and I wanna move future now, right?
Yep.
So, been in the business 5 years, right? You got in 2018, end of 2018.
End of 2018, yeah.
Okay, and built the business up, had the mentor, has the mentor, still the mentor, right?
Yeah.
What's something that you're looking to accomplish here, either personal business, team business, whichever, in the next 12 months?
I'd like to this past year felt a little off for me. We had our daughter this past or in February she turned a year old. So I was really struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety after her, which really just kind of like threw me for a loop. So it was a little challenging to kind of feel like I had my footing again, but I still managed to do 6 million last year. So it's like, I'm trying to just keep growing and keep
Mm,
doing what I have been doing. I feel like I can get out a bit more. She's not so little now. So it's a little bit easier for me to get back into the groove that I felt like I was pretty well into before she was born. So I don't want to even put a number onto that. It's more just
yeah,
like I want to get back to this year is my focus of just staying consistent and connecting with as many people as I can, whether or not it's an immediate client or somebody down the road, but just making connections and staying consistent. I would like to double what I did last year and get back up to that, like, 20, 30, 40 deals a year and just keep growing from that. But yeah, my main focus right now is just to kind of get back into that groove that I really solidly felt in 2020 and 2021. And then, keep growing, man, because we have big things planned with our little group, and we have some awesome people working with us, and I'm excited to do more design stuff too. I really love that. Spending other people's
yeah.
money. It's great. This is the tile you need. These are the
Yeah,
colors.
exactly. Don't worry about the price. Don't worry about
Yeah. No, but I'm also very thrifty.
it.
So like
Yeah, yeah,
I am the queen of like finding vintage or funky like, things and reusing them for other purposes. But yeah, when I can help other people kind of see
right.
beyond the big box,
Yeah, yeah.
store and ideas, then that's always fun too.
What's something that you're looking to accomplish in the next 5 years?
Oh, 5 years. I hope this house is done. Lord, I hope this house is done. Um, yeah, 5 years. I want to be able to take more vacations. I want to, um, I don't know, man, just like have a better balance, I guess, because
Yeah,
it's been it's been a grind. I feel like for like the past few years, just professionally, I think every agent has felt that it was chaos on fire
right,
during, 2020, latter half of 2020, 2021, 2022, and then throwing a newborn into it and throwing into our own like personal stuff that's been going on as far as like our oldest health stuff and this massive undertaking of our renovations. So I'm really just hopeful that within 5 years we have things a little bit more under control as far as a little bit more balanced.
yeah.
We need more vacations, but also just be able to like, you know, separate a bit more and not feel like I have to respond to something automatically, even if it's like 11:30 at night.
Right, right.
Like I'm
Yeah, I
always
think
here. I tell my clients, I'm like, I'm always here, but just to be able to like draw a line and make boundaries.
it's to me, like, it's running your real estate business as a business versus having a job, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of agents struggle with the stepping out part, of their business, um, because we feel that we have to be on all the time when our clients need us.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and no one's going to take better care of them than you, right? So and that's
so
what I
so
mean. Jeff
so
and I have
there's
worked. Well, Jeff and I have worked on that because he's even said, he's like, this is the first time in my entire real estate career that I know I can leave and
yeah,
have you take care of my
yeah,
people and know that they'll be taken care of the exact same way I would do
yeah,
it. And he was just like, it's invaluable. So, just getting to the point where the financial stress of like a massive renovation and right now I'm the sole provider because my husband's full-time job is building this house.
yeah,
So it's been a blessing because I can support us all with my business, but also
right.
like it's a lot to
Yeah.
spread
No, I
load.
mean, I think agents, we struggle with that stuff all the time. We feel if we don't respond to our client, they're going to be pissed off. We feel if we, don't prospect today, we're going to miss business, and we feel if we turn down this client, we're not going to have another deal coming down the line,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of it is just structuring out the business to run almost like your gym, right? If you weren't there, the gym was still going potentially, right? You had employees or all those other, trainers and, all of those things. But that's how you want to set up the real estate business. And a lot of agents do struggle with that because a lot of people, like for me, in the beginning, it was I got into real estate because I want to make money.
Yeah,
And then over the first couple of years, and now, 12 years into it, it's a lifestyle that it provides me.
for sure.
It's not necessarily go out and make the most money. Yes, that's definitely possible. But it's what lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to go on 12 vacations a year? Do you want to go on 6? Do you want to not work Fridays? Do you want to work, So we get those choices. It's just, setting up the people and the systems in place to allow that to happen.
Mhm.
Kaylee, what is a legacy goal of yours? What's something that you hope to hit when you're no longer here?
We joke that, well, not really joke, but like the property that we're renovating and dealing with right now. I mean, this is like legacy type stuff. It's so pretty. It's 8 acres and like this cool house that we're like fixing up. So leaving that, but also just for my kids, because we have all girls, and just showing them that, you know, you can not only take care of yourself, but you can absolutely take care of your entire family, just, based on your work and your work ethic and your authenticity. And I don't feel like I have to put myself into some little box somewhere that didn't feel right. And I've done a lot of things in my life. I've worn a lot of different hats. I've traveled a lot of different places, but I've always been me. And now, I mean, anyone can help you buy and sell a house, right? But people work with people who they want to work with and people who make them feel, confident and safe. And that's something that I want to instill in my kids, to just, try and be a better human to make this world a little bit better. It's kind of hokey, right? But like, I think
I love
that's
it.
everybody's goal. But like, to be able to be with somebody during some of these, yeah, it's just a house or it's just a buying and selling, but this is where people live. This is where people do their living. This is where people make their life. And to be a little part of that is, an honor, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's a way to make money and you can make a really good living, but I like being involved in people's lives as far as like, helping them through situations that could potentially be really like, expensive and scary, sometimes
Yeah.
stressful. So it's nice to be able to be that cornerstone, like that stronghold for them to be like, okay, if she's not worried, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we'll get through that. And that's what I want my kids to, whatever they decide to do, whether that's,
Yeah.
fill in the blank. But I feel like the work ethic and being your authentic self and finding a way to capitalize on that and make a living from that is pretty phenomenal.
I love it. Last question for you.
Yeah.
If you could give our audience one piece of advice that either you wish you had or one that you share with other agents, what would that be?
Find a good tax person from the jump. Listen,
They don't
it's
teach you that.
tax
They don't teach you that
season,
in
and I
school.
hate taxes, but like you need to find, like, there's all the, be your authentic self and be like, find a mentor, all those things. Yes, 1,000%. You need to find a tax person. You need an accountant. Like, you need to start tracking expenses from the beginning. There are apps in place that you can like very simply like swipe left or right for business or, not business trips. Like, you need to start, if you don't want to learn or know tax stuff, find somebody that's good at it, because it'll save you so much headache down the road. That's a big one. I know it's like more like not inspirational advice, like just factual, like, hey, this will probably save you a lot of pain in the end. So that's a big one, but also like finding a mentor. Always find somebody. You should never be following somebody that's not 5 steps ahead of you. You need to find somebody that's ahead of you and where you want to be, and learn from them. Learn as much as you can. Like, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel if they've already invented it, right? So like, take their formula, put your own spin on it, put your own flavor into it, and, go with your gut. But find the people, surround yourself with people that are good at their jobs, including a tax person.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're a business. As soon as you get your real estate license, you're a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. I think it took me 3-4 years to get caught up from my first or second year in the business on taxes.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a damn clue. I was 22 years old. My parents don't teach you about taxes. School doesn't teach you about taxes. Real estate school doesn't teach you about taxes.
Yeah.
And, but you're spot on. It's the minute that you get licensed and you step into this business, you are a business.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand how a business operates and what it takes to operate.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that's taught. And there's a whole meme or something that's like, hey, I'm so glad I learned about parallelograms in school. It's really coming in handy this parallelogram season. And I'm like, yes, like, why do we not learn about like taxes and LLCs and S corps and like tax assumptions? And like, why is that not something that's taught? Because the education system is set up for us to all just go to college and be a cog in a wheel. But like, if someone's out here trying to be their own freaking wheel, you got to learn everything on the fly and like trial by error and paying, being on payment plans because you didn't set aside enough tax money. So it's just, it's wild. It's a wild ride, man. But it's cool that I think younger people are getting into entrepreneurship and like being self-employed and working for themselves. So maybe things will change. But I mean, for us, it was a lot. It's been a lot of like learning as you go.
Yep. Figuring it out. It all works out, right? Kaylee, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate you jumping on here and sharing your journey, and your stories of, getting into the business and just kind of how you're, built the business and where you want to get to. For those that are listening in, everyone that's watching, her phone number has been at the bottom of the screen. If you're a buyer, a seller, or even a real estate agent, and you just connected with her and want to, reach out to her and pick her brain and ask questions, please do so. Kaylee, for those that are listening in, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Texting is always easiest. My phone number has been scrolling. I'm really active on Instagram. Any listings that I have go live. I do sometimes like little walkthroughs, and there's stuff of my kids and, plants that we're growing because we have a big garden that we're planting. But my Instagram is at Kaylee in Columbus. And I mean, those are the two easiest ways. We have our website is thecolumbusohagents.com. You can email me, but really texting is easiest because it's most instantaneous. I'm really, really quick at getting back to text. So
her phone number is 614-403-1499.
That's
make
me.
sure you guys reach out to her. Kaylee, again, I appreciate you. If there's anything I could do for you in the future, please reach out to me. I'm here to help you any way I can.
Yeah, appreciate it, John. Definitely, we should try to see each other in person at some point because it's been.
We'll get together.
Yeah,
I
for
think,
sure.
and I've been talking to Jeff about Airbnbs and stuff on Facebook. So
Yeah.
maybe the three of us can get together and chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'll talk to you here soon.
All right,
Thanks again.
cool. Thanks, John.